Yo, Shortbox Nation, this is Botter, and I'm here to tell you right now that con season starts early this year with the return of Northeast Florida's premier anime, comic book, and sci-fi event, Collective Con. That's right, Northeast Florida's largest pop culture convention returns for its 10th year on March 8th through the 10th at the Prime Osborne Center in Jacksonville, Florida. 10 years of Collective Con, they're pulling all the stops out to make sure this is a can't-miss event. And the guest list they got going, don't even get me started on the guest list. I mean, they've got A-list celebrity guests and voice actors from some of your favorite movies, anime, and video games like Elijah Wood and Sean Ashton, Ray Park, Trisha Helfer, Ross Marquand, Max Middleman, and Bo-Katan herself will be there, Katie Sackhoff. Tell me what other convention is giving you the opportunity to meet Frodo and Sam from Lord of the Rings, Darth Maul, and One Punch Man all under the same roof. Only at Collective Con. And if you're looking to get some of your favorite comics signed, or if you want to get an original sketch from some of the best comic artists in the world, well, you're in luck, because there'll be plenty of comic and creator guests there, like DC comic artist extraordinaire Clay Mann, Harvey Award-nominated illustrator John Taylor Christopher, Marvel and DC cover artist Chris Stevens, and acclaimed Star Wars author Timothy Zahn. They'll all be at Collective Con this year. And if you're looking to bring the family, or if you want to make a weekend out of it, you're in luck, because there'll be so much going on at Collective Con that weekend in the form of vendors, fan panels, video game tournaments, cosplay contests, after parties, and a bunch of fan events. You can purchase single and 3-day weekend passes now using the link in this episode's show notes, or by going to collectivecon.com to book your tickets and hotel. Buy your tickets now, and I'll see you at Collective Con, March 8th through the 10th. Now let's start the show. Warm up. You know what? Today's warm-up is brought to you by something actually that you texted in the group that I hadn't even thought about. You texted how, I think it was like, hey, I can go back to 1 o'clock. And you were like, oh, that's great. I can check out the Jags score. Which got me thinking, are you into football like that?
I mean, it's kind of hard because this podcast is usually Sundays at 1 o'clock.
That was one of life's biggest critiques of the podcast when we started dating was, wait, you record when on when?
Oh, man.
Fucking crazy.
But yeah, no, I like watching the Jags games.
Okay.
They're usually heartbreaking, but
very heartbreaking.
And Trevor Lawrence, I didn't meet him, but I saw him in real life for the first time at my work.
Oh.
Did he have that Jesus glow that I think he has?
Is he floating like Black Adam?
He's like thick.
Oh.
Like he looks so skinny and little on TV, but he's like built.
Damn.
Imagine if a lineman
I was like
came in.
super surprised. I know.
Wait, did you was he at your job? I'm assuming like to drop off his dog or pet?
Yeah, he had his dogs. He had 2 dogs.
Dobermans? What are they? Rottweilers? What
What type of dogs?
No, they were like little like floofy dogs. But it's funny because Tim Tebow also brings his dogs there. He's never shown up. He always has an assistant or like someone bringing the dogs. But Trevor Lawrence, he's just down to earth.
Damn
he's just
right,
like,
man.
I'm here
Come
with my
on.
dogs.
Yeah, he's not even in the league. He has an assistant bring his dogs to man.
Safe to say, I guess on Sundays, when we don't record on Sundays, you're probably like, oh, finally, I could fucking crack open a beer. Well, maybe not now, but before, crack open a beer
maybe
and
not a
watch,
beer, but
watch the game.
Yeah, no, I do enjoy watching the games.
Okay. Well, now I feel kind of weird. I feel kind of bad that I'm pulling you away from our beloved Jaguar. Well, even though, honestly, I say beloved Jaguars, but at times, I feel like I'm also doing you a favor by not having them ruin your Sundays like they did my Sunday these last 2 weeks. Absolutely breaking my heart.
I read the comic this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is going to be a super long podcast, honestly, guys.
Oh.
I mean, that's just my opinion. There was just not a lot of Namor in this Namor comic.
Not at all. It was one of those. It was one of those titles that, at first, I was like, "Wonder why the patrons picked this one." But then I was like, "Well, I'm the one that put these the topics up on the poll." So I started questioning, "Why did I?"
Because the writer has the same last name as you.
You know what? The Milligan conspiracy. The
Milligan conspiracy
continues. You're right. You're right. For a Submariner Spotlight episode, this is going to be very skimp. On the Submariner. All right. I feel warmed up. Let's bring in the intro music and let's get the pod in. Let's get the show started.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Short Box Podcast.
The Short Box Podcast is recorded live from Jacksonville, Florida.
Yo, Short Box Nation, welcome back to the podcast. How are you doing today? Hopefully you're feeling good. I hope you're feeling great. And I hope you're ready for another excellent episode. To all of our new friends joining us for the first time, my name is Botter. Welcome to the Short Box Podcast, the comic review and talk show where you hear the best conversations about comic books and other forms of pop culture that they inspire. It is my honor to welcome you to episode 373. Today we'll be gearing up for the long-awaited release of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, with a dedicated spotlight and related comic review on Namor the Submariner, who is one of two, if not maybe more, Marvel characters that will be making their MCU debut later this week. I know we're going to see Namor for the first time. We'll see Riri Williams for the first time. And who knows who else will be making their debut appearance. Namor will be portrayed on the big screen by Mexican actor Tenoch Huerta. He will be sharing screen time with the likes of Letitia Wright, Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke, and many other returning cast members. And like we do anytime there's a new comic book blockbuster movie on the horizon, we look to our Patreon community and allow them to pick the topic for today's show. And according to the poll, there was a lot of interest in learning more about one of Marvel's oldest characters. Namor won 56% of the votes, beating out potential spotlights about Shuri and Riri Williams. I think it's just safe to say that our patrons absolutely love a man in Speedos. I think that's the only logical explanation that I can think of. So in response to the overwhelming interest in one of Marvel's oldest mutants, and a character that has the best Widow's Peak in comics from one fellow Widow's Peak person to another, we'll be looking at a unique story with an interesting horror spin on Namor that I don't think we've seen done in comics since then. All right, it comes in the form of Submariner: The Depths. It is a 5-issue limited series released in 2008 under Marvel's Marvel Knights imprint, which was an imprint that was meant to focus on standalone material taking place inside the Marvel universe, although not always in canon. Our goal today is to give you our review of this story, brush up on the history of the character, and possibly give you a new perspective on this iconic Marvel anti-hero. Joining me to help with this goal are two of my favorite people and the best co-host that a man in Speedos could ask for. In the studio, sitting next to me is artist extraordinaire and walking comic database, Edmund Danzart.
What's up? What's up, man?
How you doing?
Good.
Ed, are you a fan of the Speedos, or are you more of like just a swim trunks type of guy?
Personally, for me, I cover up as much as I can.
Oh, so you're a t-shirt guy.
Oh, I'm that's like I'm the t-shirt guy at the pool. It's like, who's that ripped dude with a t-shirt on? It's like, yeah, that's me. This one cover it up. Yeah, I cover up the sun. I'm allergic to the sun. But if we're talking about Namor fashion, the Speedo's pretty sweet, but I still like that black bodysuit with a diving neckline.
Oh, is it the deep one?
Deep V.
Yeah, that's a good suit.
That's a sweet suit.
I'm more of the shimmer. I enjoy classic green and gold shimmery Speedos. Namor. That's my favorite one. Also on today's panel, and calling in from the mythical and lost city of Atlantic Beach, Jacksonville, Florida, is our favorite mer woman with a mic. Miss Ashley Lanny Hoy is also here with us. What's up, Ashley?
Hey, not much.
Ashley, did you know that in the Marvel universe, there is a race of people, the people that reside in Atlantis and most notably Namor, are categorized as a unique race of people. They're called Homo mermanus.
Oh, I read that differently in the comic. I thought it was Homo mermanus.
Manus manus.
You know what? It might. You might actually.
Tomato.
If we're debating who has the proper and correct pronunciation
the blue
between
people,
me and you,
right?
It's definitely you. Yeah, Homo mermanus. Would you rather be a Homo mermanus, Homo superior, or just regular old Homo sapien? Well, which one are you leaning towards?
I think it'd be cool to be a merman.
Yeah, I like mermanus. It's kind of fun to say. I mean, I'm saying it all wrong, but it's definitely fun to say. All right, on the topic of mermaids, we'll get to talking about the most famous Homo mermanus in the Marvel universe. But first, I'd like to address all the listeners that enjoy this show for free every week by bringing in this beautiful piano rendition of the Sarah McLachlan song that puts everyone in a charitable mood. If you're someone that enjoys the show on a regular basis, please consider joining our Patreon community. That way you can have a vote in future episodes like this, and you'll get access to bonus episodes, a video podcast, and other content that we don't release through the regular feed. The very small fee that we do charge to be a Patreon subscriber is nothing compared to the amount of perks and rewards that you get in return. And not only that, you'll be helping us to cover the cost of keeping this show running. So that means you'll feel really good about yourselves, right? You'll feel good about helping some independent creators live out their dreams for less than 10 cents a day. I did the math, right? I got a high school education math, and we're cheaper to support than starving kids, all right? And if a monthly commitment of $1 or $2 is just too much for you right now, yo, all good. I get it. The struggle is real. We got one other way that you can show your support for the Short Box. You can leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. This might seem like a small thing, but in all honesty, it's a major help for us, right? It helps us attract new listeners that might come across their show. Think of it like an Amazon review. You know, you're only buying the things that's like 5 stars and got raving reviews. So that's what we need from you, all right? Let the world know that you enjoy the show. So that's 3 options available to you right now, right there. Easy, all right? Easy options to fulfill your duties as a citizen of the Short Box Nation. Now, would I prefer that you take the route where you give me crisp Washingtons and Lincolns? Absolutely. But look, regardless of what you choose to do, support the show, and thank you in advance for helping out. All right, with the charity and sad piano music out the way, let's go ahead and get today's main topic started, which is all about Namor the Submariner. Specifically, a 2008 story that depicts him in a unsettling vision, the likes that we haven't seen done since then, and maybe for good reason, all right? I'll let you decide. But first, allow me to set the stage for our friends tuning in that might not be familiar with the story we're talking about, or just might appreciate a hyper-fast crash course on Namor. Let me get some music going, let me get a nice little sound bed, and here we go. Namor was created by writer, artist, and overall comic pioneer Bill Everett. He's the same man who would co-create other iconic Marvel heroes like Daredevil, as well as having a hand in the development of Iron Man 2. Now, Everett originally came up with the idea of Namor for a comic called Motion Picture Funnies Weekly, which was intended to be a promotional comic given away in movie theaters. Unfortunately, the project was scrapped before it could reach the public, but the idea of a hybrid mutant love child between a human sea captain and a princess from Atlantis was just too good for Everett to abandon. Namor was later repurposed and made his comic debut in 1939's Marvel Comics #1. Now, you would think by the title alone that the publisher of the comic would be a no-brainer. You would maybe think Marvel Comics published it. But the comic was actually published by Timely Comics, which was a predecessor to Marvel Comics by 2 degrees of separation. Now, Namor's powers include superhuman strength, the ability of flight, as well as other aquatic abilities. And as the rightful ruler of Atlantis, he also possesses an ironic, fiery temperament and blazing fury for the surface world. Throughout his long history in Marvel Comics, he's waged and declared war on the surface world and bumped heads with most of the Marvel Universe more times than you could possibly keep count of, even summoning a tsunami at one point to flood Wakanda. But that's a story for another day. Despite all that, he's also showed acts of heroism by aligning himself with the heroes of the Marvel Universe on multiple occasions when the world and his kingdom needed him most. And are we going to talk about any of that today? Not per se, because the story that we're spotlighting today is a 2008 5-issue miniseries called Submariner: The Depths. It's equal parts Moby Dick, a dash of John Carpenter's The Thing, rolled into a shivering underwater terror, and portrays a completely unique vision of the character thanks to the creative team of writer Peter Milligan and artist Esad Ribic. The story is set in the 1950s and follows the journey of an acclaimed scientist named Randolph Stein, who was chosen to lead a rescue mission into the Mariana Trench to recover a captain who reportedly went insane before disappearing while searching for Atlantis. Now, Stein has made his career off of debunking popular myths and legends, so he's a natural counterweight, and he enlists the help of a seasoned but superstitious deep-sea crew to figure out what really happened to the captain. But as his ship submerges deeper into the oceanic abyss, the more he begins to fear that the legends of Atlantis, and of Namor in particular, might actually be true. End scene. That is everything you need to know going into the rest of this episode and topic. Reading the story isn't required, but we always recommend you check out the comic for yourself. You can buy it in a completed format on Amazon, or you can read it for free on the Marvel Unlimited app with a paid subscription. Ashley, if you don't mind taking it from here so I can take a breather, what themes did you pick up on, or name some of the key topics that are explored in the story?
So one of the big things was isolation, because all these guys are stuck together like super far under the ocean. And then there's definitely corruption. And then also I think the big theme in this is like the science versus like mythology thing, where the main character just had such a hard time understanding that, you know, sometimes there's both. He was just like such a man of science. He felt like if he gave in to anything and said anything is true that, you know, he hadn't been taught, then he was just like going back on like everything he was as a scientist. He kind of was an interesting character. And then, of course, Namor was just like this looming kind of creature, mythological, almost like Yeti type thing during like the whole graphic novel.
He kind of looked like Sinestro to me, the scientist.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
You're
I just
right.
kept thinking Sinestro.
Something about the forehead. Yeah. He had a lot of forehead.
That little creepy
space.
mustache.
Yeah,
Creep
that too.
mustache, too. What a jerk.
Actually, I think you said it best at the beginning that this comic is like 90% everything else and maybe 10% Namor actually like makes an appearance at that.
Yeah, Namor doesn't come in till, like, we were talking about this before we were recording, and I think this would have been better served as a 1-volume kind of trade, you know, as opposed to single issues.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I don't know what the market, this was what, 2009-ish or so?
Yeah, 2008, 2009.
It's like when you have him, you have Submariner on the title, and we don't get him till 4 issues in. How many people are hanging on? And I love the story. Because I got to read it all at once.
Yep.
I got to see that slow burn. It's kind of has that horror, like really claustrophobic horror movie feel with just, you know, your imagination like kind of takes over. And then, like I said, you don't see the monster, in this case, Namor, until towards the end. So you're not really sure what to expect. So I think, and the fact that they put him on all the covers,
super misleading.
Yeah.
it's kind of, I don't want to say, I think bait and switch is a little strong, but I think it would have been served better. Like if this was something that was released today, I think it would have been just a standalone graphic novel as opposed to like a miniseries.
Yeah, I'm right there, which I read this in its entirety. I mean, I definitely wasn't, you know, collecting this as it came out in 2008, but I would have, but I've read enough stories like this where it's not necessarily the bait and switch, but it's not what you expect from like a series with like the title character in the name.
And what we know of Namor, how kind of belligerent and out character he is.
It kind of fits in line with like Marvel Knights, like MO and that whole imprint, and trying to like, you know, do more standalone stuff and maybe like go beyond your expectations.
It's almost like an Elseworlds type of thing, where it's just like a different reality. So we don't have superheroes. Because I was thinking this is almost like a horror Marvels, you know, where it's like your perspective is from like an average person, like a non-hero, a non-superpowered hero, and you get his brush with like a super heroic being, or, you know, like something beyond scientific reason, you know.
Now that you bring it up like that, it reminds me of Marvels. Oh, now I'm always confused because, you know, like the
Alex Ross, Kurt Busiek.
Yeah. You know, like now it's like so many different variations, Marvel and all that. So I was
Secret Wars.
But it reminds me of that original series where it wasn't necessarily about the X-Men in particular or the Avengers, but it was about like what was the name of the main character? He was a reporter. I think his name was like Sheldon. But it was about like the reporter's point of view of seeing like the Marvel Golden Age and how like his kind of whole being and world is kind of rocked because, like, you know, superhumans and mutants do exist. And I feel like a lot of that is similar here, where it might not necessarily be about Namor or a story about Namor, but more so like, what does the idea of like this superhuman being or this mythology, this real life mythology, how does it impact like the normal human? And it's kind of cool that it centers on this main character that is a skeptic, you know, scientist whose whole belief is like based on what he can prove, like the black and white, and to see him go from like being very confident in the beginning, like a world renowned debunker, you know, for the most part, gradually like losing his mind.
And he's not just a skeptic. He's kind of like, he puts on like a whole show, and like a stage show, and like really kind of an asshole about it, you know. So the fact that you get that kind of character, it's one thing to just say, yeah, this isn't real, I'd write in papers, but to put on like, call these people, put on a show, and then do like that with the bear and the Yeti, kind of the big reveal, like making like a show, almost like mocking that whole the idea of mythology.
Yep.
And then to see him kind of just slowly lose his mind. And at the end, it's like when people would say, don't say his name, it's a curse, you know. And at the end, he's saying, don't say his name. You know, I don't want to hear his name.
Yeah.
It's a good character to play off of.
This was a very existential story, you know, like just watching all of these characters, particularly the main scientist, like have to battle his own, like question his own beliefs and eventually kind of going mad. But I've also got like, you know, this story for the most part, you know, no shocker here, but deals with the ocean, right? Like it takes place deep in the Marianas Trench. I don't know if, you know, I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence, but I didn't know that like it was the deepest part of like the world. Like you could I read a stat that was like you could put Mount Everest in Marianas Trench and there would still be like miles above it, you know, before the peak ever breaks through to the surface. So it's like, just to give you an idea of like how deep this sea crew is going in, and then seeing the psychological effects of being that deep in the ocean, to be in water that is that dark. I think in issue 1, the main kind of like ship captain or engineer, I love this quote that he says, because he's talking to the captain who's kind of like, you know, still rather like high and gung-ho and like high on his horse when it comes to this mission. And he's pretty faithful, that confident that he's going to prove like the world wrong, that there is no Namor. But the sea captain tells him, and I think this is kind of like the ethos of the whole story, but he has a quote where he says, "The depths do strange things to a man's head. The deeper you go, the more creatures start crawling out of the darkness." As the story plays out, that's not to be taken literal, but like, you know, psychological, the things that happen to everyone on board and the mistrust that happens and how this mythology kind of takes, you know, becomes a character itself. So I think that's a good level set as far as like some of the themes and topics that we get introduced to in the story. Ed, I wanted to take a step back and go to you and look to you to maybe talk about the creative team. We talked that, you know, writer Peter Milligan and artist Esad Ribic. If I'm not mistaken, when we did our Thor comic spotlight,
we
you know,
do a little refresh on.
So yeah, give us
Esad Ribic. Esad Ribic. He's awesome. Peter Milligan. So he is a guy who's been around forever. He started in 2000 AD. He's a British writer. He's been working since 1981. So longer than we've been alive, pretty much. So
that's Uncle Peter. That's my Uncle Peter.
Uncle Peter has been around. He's worked for everybody. He's written for almost everyone. And I think, like, I guess my first, real introduction to him was when the Mike Allred, from the relaunch of X-Force. Yeah. That's kind of where he came into my view as a fan. So, but like I said, he's worked for, like I said, 2000 AD, Eclipse Comics, Valiant Comics, Pacific Comics, Dark Horse, Vertigo, DC, Marvel. He's even done like current publishers like AWA and Aftershock, and he's even did something for that Bad Idea label. Oh wow! It was a bad idea. It went out of business real quick. But like I said, he's given credit, like co-creating Azrael during the Dark Knight Nightfall run, and he's, like I said, he's written. I think he's been almost doing a lot of Marvel stuff lately, but he's done a ton of work. I wish, and like I said, another cool thing, he worked with Jamie Hewlett on Tank Girl. He's written for Tank Girl. Jamie Hewlett, Tank Girl creator, the Gorillas kind of visual artists. Like basically just a world-renowned artist at this point, illustrator. But like I said, he's done stuff for, and he's part of that British invasion that came over, like with, you know, Grant Morrison, Alan Moore. And I think he's not on that mountain with those guys, because I know he's kind of been the guy who's taken over for them. You know, he's like, he took over for Grant Morrison and Animal Man. So he's filling a lot of shoes. He's done a lot of, you know, he's taking over for, like, you know, Alan Moore with Hellblazer, or, you know, Garth Ennis. So he's filling in these big shoes, but he's considered part of that British invasion when DC was getting all these 2000 AD writers to come over. But like I said, his resume is ridiculous, and he's still active too. He's still writing stuff to this day. I think he's doing, what's the new, not Ecstatics, it's the Excellent. Yeah.
Excellent with
Mike Allred. So he's doing that. He's still very, very active. So like I said, he's just a pro's pro. He's just a guy that's been around for forever.
Well said.
And then, as far as Esad Ribic, He is a Croatian sensation. We talked about him doing the Gore the God Butcher. He's a guy who was influenced by Jean Giraud, Mobius, and Frank Frazetta, and you can kind of see those influences in his work. But like I said, started as a basically professional illustrator, and he kind of hit the ground running. He's been in comics since '96, but he's done a lot of other stuff. I saw him do like this Louis Vuitton Hawaii ad campaign, like a campaign for Louis Vuitton, and they actually had like footage of Hawaii and him working on like these Hawaiian landscapes and things like that, and him actually talking about Hawaii. It's really cool. That was like 2017, so it's not too far away.
And they had the Croatian sensation talking about Hawaii.
Yeah. Hey,
this looks pretty badass.
It's funny. He's like so even keeled. It's like it's not too hot. It's not never too hot or not ever cold at all. It's good. It's the jungle, but not. It's not scary jungle. It's like it's okay jungle. It's but like I said, he's worked pretty much since '96 to present day, and I'm not sure if anyone else will agree with this, but he's like, I think he's next tier under Alex Ross as far as painter, like someone who does like painted.
I was gonna say,
because his palette's is not as bright and bold as Alex Ross's, but he has this great like kind of subdued color palette. And reading it digitally, it's cool because I get to zoom in on stuff and see all the texture and things like that when he's painting. And just seeing videos of him actually working, it's really, really cool.
Thank you, Ed.
Mm-hmm.
Ashley, what did you think of the creative team, specifically the art? Give us your thoughts on the art. Yo, this is Botter. Sorry for interrupting this episode, but I'll keep it brief. I wanted to let you know about a massive sale we have going on over at the Shortbox store on all of our merchandise and apparel. That's theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com. You can now save 20% off your entire order using the discount code YOO, Y-O-O. So if you've been waiting for the right time to finally buy that gauntlet snapback, or if you ever wanted to buy any of the shirts you see me wear on the podcast, well, now's your chance to get them for a steal. We still have a few sizes left of everything, but they won't last long, and once they're gone, they are gone. And then I mentioned that all of our apparel is screen printed on high quality material. None of that heat transfer or direct to garment stuff. Our shirts are some of the most comfortable ones you'll ever wear, and the hats look even better in person. So wear your support for the Shortbox Nation proudly, knowing that you're going to look damn good doing it. Get to theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com as soon as you can, and don't forget to use that discount code YOO, Y-O-O, to save 20% off your entire order. All of this information can be found in this episode's show notes if you want to get there faster. Thanks for not pressing fast forward. Now back to the show.
I mean, I have to agree with Ed. Like, I think he's like super close to Alex Ross. I feel like he's got so much more speed on Alex Ross.
Oh, yeah.
Just like he's done so many more interiors. So I feel like if he just, like, if you look at that Louis Vuitton stuff, if he takes that extra time, I think he's as good as Alex Ross.
Mm-hmm.
But just his colors and he's just is very, like, I feel like he's an illustrator first and then a comic book artist.
It's funny you say that because that's what he says exactly. He said that in the video.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's like, comics are fine, but I'm artist first and illustrator, and comics are just another thing I do. What are you gonna do?
His expressions and his and like his, I don't know, just the way he paints faces. It reminds me of like the classic illustrators. Yeah.
Yeah. These faces are so bizarre. Like this crew.
I thought he was that's why I think Esad Ribic is such a perfect fit for this. Because I think, did we talk about him or was it another artist where his eyes to me are so buggy? And Esad Ribic.
These are some fish-eyed people in this, like when they're watching the video at the end and their eyes are just perfect circles.
Esad Ribic draws fear and shock and awe so well in their faces. Like you firmly believe that whatever they are seeing transpire, that they are losing their fucking mind.
Those ones with like, especially with the faces, because this is like a weird looking crew out of like a old Popeye cartoon, or I see kind of like a Richard Corbin, because they're so exaggerated, like the guy with the crazy sideburns. Even the even Stein, he's like kind of has that that really really stylized, almost like caricatures, you know.
Mm-hmm. There's something about the what did you think about the lighting and coloring for a book that takes place completely in like this self-contained like, you know, ship and vessel, and it's supposed to be like completely black, you know, because they're so deep in the water. I thought the lighting did such an excellent way of spotlighting you know, certain key moments, giving it a rather like unique atmosphere for a book that should be completely
dark. A lot of atmosphere and a lot of like claustrophobic because you know they're in a submarine and it's these really tight quarters. He did a really good job with that. And like I was saying earlier about zooming in, like when that one scene where they go on the sub of the I can't remember any of their names, but when they find the crew that were all killed and they're coming in, and then you see the flashlights are basically pointing towards you as a reader, and you can see even like the light kind of diffusing into the dark.
Yeah,
it's like, man, even just little touches like that, it's so awesome.
Ashley, did you have like, were there any standout like issues in particular, or panels or pages or like moments that stood out to you?
I mean, I don't know. I loved how easy, because there are many times when I'm reading a comic and I'm like trying to figure out which character's which, and you don't have that with this.
No.
I think my favorite panel was still when Namor finally showed up, because they've been like alluding to him for like 3 issues.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like these dudes are scrapping, and then you know, look up and Namor's there. It's like, finally, like he's here
in the nude too,
and he just looks so cool, and he's like all in shadow.
He's like sexy
and
Nosferatu.
I think that was my favorite panel.
He's like all pale.
I thought the payoff with Namor finally showing up, it wasn't even like the biggest moment, because I thought just the little bit of glimpses that you caught of him in the background made it such a fun read. And by the time you finally got to see him in person, to me, it kind of like, at that point, it's kind of like seeing the monster, right? You're like, okay.
Yeah, I think that's why I don't think they should have put him on the covers until the last issue, because we don't see him. We see the glimpses of like, oh, there's like a figure out there, and that one fake out where it has like the crazy bug-eyed sharp tooth fish face when he's like having a nightmare.
I think those were my favorite panel or like moments in the book, is the small details they'd have in the background, whether it be like a handprint on the glass or like a fin or his like foot, you know, in the background. I love like the use of, we as a reader are viewing the, you know, these men kind of like, you know, losing their mind inside of this ship, and the only view we have of the outside world, I use in quotation marks, are, you know, the mirrors that they'd like the windows they have on the ship. So it was like really smart execution of like utilizing like every part of the panel and every part of like this ship. I imagine it was probably like a challenging setting to like, you know, let's draw a comic book that completely takes place on an enclosed ship, but to like have moments like that where like outside the window you kind of get a faint of Namor, and, you know, adding to that horror field, and like you said, that claustrophobia, and just like the suspense too. I think it's a very suspenseful book because you never know when Namor shows up. But Ed, to your point, if you were to just kind of base it off the cover, you would imagine that this is a story where Namor is fucking up everybody on the ship. I think in every like cover, it's
punching
like him
submarines in half, you know, going crazy,
you know, dragging people to the bottom of the ocean.
They just crushing them.
I don't even think he says any words, right? Like he's kind of dialogueless.
And he's got like weird sharp teeth. He doesn't say anything.
Yeah, and which is such
and
a 180.
He likes talking.
Yeah, exactly.
That
which
dude
is
talks
so
some
180
shit.
for the character. You know, he doesn't go on about surface dwellers. He doesn't mention Atlantis. If anything, you kind of get the feeling that he is still a protector of Atlantis, but he doesn't. You're not sure if he's like the regal king of Atlantis, more so as like, I'm here to make sure no one ever, you know, finds Atlantis, and if they do, they never make it back to the surface world.
And the fact that they put, I think this is such an interesting concept too, putting Atlantis like at the bottom of the trench, more or less, because that's basically, we shouldn't be going at all. We're not built, because, you know, the pressure of the ocean would crush us into atoms. Like I said, it's like kind of nature's way of saying, you don't belong here. Stay the fuck out. You don't belong here. So it's one of those things where if anybody gets close, it's like nobody lives to tell about it, which leads to like all that, you know, seagoing mythology that, you know, has been with sailors since beginning of time, you know?
And I'm glad you brought that up, because aside from the art being very captivating, and to me, for the most part, it felt like I was looking at a bunch of like Renaissance paintings put in a comic book. And that's all credit to Esad right there. But Peter Milligan must have done his research on, deep sea diving, I think aquatic mythology, or whatever, aquatic life mythology and all that, because he nails it delivered in that regard. Like, it was very believable. It didn't feel like it was surface level, I guess no pun intended, surface level, like a surface level sailor story. Some of the concepts that he was introducing, like the dialogue between the other sailors, felt really believable. Like, to the point I had to do some research, but he brings up concepts that you would only kind of see in that career field, like decompression sickness, calling it the bends. I think he has a nickname for the sailors called deep men. The information he shared about like the Marianas Trench, like it seems like he did a lot of research in regards to that to build a very believable story.
Yeah, and even having like, the Herman Melville, the Moby Dick quotes. And I even think the doctor is like a nod, the sick doctor, with a turban. I think he's like almost like a nod to like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, like Nemo.
Yeah.
So I think even that's like a little nod to that too. So there's like these nods to these, literature that involves, these kind of the subject matter.
Yeah. Ashley, what was your familiarity with Namor the Submariner prior to this? Like, is he a character that's been on your radar, or was this like your first like real crash course and instance, like meeting the character?
I've had very small sort of meetings with the character. So I remember, Secret Avengers, where he just talks and talks and talks. So this was a completely different take. And then I remember the whole reading like the comic with him and Sue Storm, where it was very like soap opera, where he's like, I love you so much, leave your husband. And she's like, I would never.
That stretchy nerd.
So I don't even remember what comic that was from, but I read it and I was like, wow, he's like real emotional. And then of course, like the infamous swimsuit. Cage.
Oh yeah.
That's all I knew about him going in.
Oh, this Marvel swimsuit issue.
So what would you say that you learned about the character from, now granted, like I think we all agree that this is a rather unique take on Namor, that we rarely see like more of this horror kind of mythology aspect, but what would you say that you take away from the character after reading this?
I just think I took away that he can be scary and intimidating. So I'm kind of excited to see like what they're going to, because we saw such a small part of him in the trailers for Black Panther. So I'm kind of curious if they're going to take this more like super intense, kind of scary approach to him.
Yeah, I've got I'm glad you mentioned that he's much scarier than you would imagine. I've got a note here that a merman is much scarier than Disney movies would want you to believe. This ain't no Little Mermaid. This ain't like, her father's like what, Neptune in the movie, like, but even then he's tough, but he ain't scary. This story in this comic book shows that in the right hands, he's more than just like a hot-headed aristocrat, but he could be like he's like a force of nature, right? Like he is part of the unknown.
I read something where they compared it like a cryptid, like you were saying earlier, like a Bigfoot, like a Mothman, like some kind of creature that defies science.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably misremembering the exact stat, but I've read that like we've only really researched and know whatever less than like 10% or something about like the ocean. Like there's still so much about underwater life and like the Marianas Trench for
and if you've seen those fish that live down there, how crazy they look.
Like exactly. The sea life alone, like we barely have really scratched, once again, excuse the pun, scratch the surface of like what is underwater. So when you think about it like in those terms, like the Submariner is a really scary concept, that like this Homo mermanus, like there's a whole society of these
Mermanus.
Yeah, and I like that they kind of put this in kind of like a Cold War, like 50s or 40s era. That
it feels real pulpy. Like
pulpy,
it's almost like a tie back to like his pulp roots. Right?
Cat butt.
Sorry.
That was
You almost
Ashley,
took the whole thing down.
Ashley, what's the name of your cat?
That was Chibs.
Chibs. Special cameo today by
Chibs.
Chibs. He was like, let me get on this mic real quick and talk about this fish
You know
man.
shit about Namor.
Yeah.
Give me the mic.
Chibs was like, look, if I
Tell
ever
you about
met a
that fish
fish
ass.
man, I'd fucking eat him. All right. Yeah, but Ed, back to your point. This definitely felt like a nod to Namor's like pulp beginnings and origins.
And you even like the crew is almost like a pirate crew. You know, it's like almost a little bit of an update of like any kind of pirate story. They're kind of bunch of hooligans and weirdos. You know.
Yeah. All I know is I probably will never take, if I ever get the opportunity to do like a deep sea expedition, it's got to be like a same day return, right?
No
Fuck
way.
like going down there.
I'm not going in a
than
cave.
day or two.
I'm not going down in the ocean where I don't belong. I'll stay on land.
Because I think that's the scary part to think about is like, yeah, this is like, aside from like the swimming seaman outside banging on the window.
Swimming
like,
seaman.
I said swimming seaman, but I guess the same thing. This shit this shit really does happen, right? Like the things that happens to your mind, like in isolation and being away from humanity and like being in the dark, right? Like they're essentially like in a trapped in a giant tube in the dark.
And I know a couple of guys that do the sub, they're in the Navy that are in the subs.
Yeah, exactly.
And they can tell you how horrible that is, and they're basically just outside of Georgia off the coast going under, they're not doing this crazy shit.
Yeah.
So in like this kind of weird 50s kind of technology that didn't exist, but it doesn't feel safe. Like that's the cool thing too, is like, I'm reading this, like, how is this stuff holding together? It's like, there's no way they can get this far down. There's no way there can be like a base at the Marianas Trench at the top of it. And
yeah. It just goes from like bad idea to even worse idea. What did you guys think? What did you guys think about the ending? Because by the end, everyone on the ship dies except for Professor Stein. He is confronted with the reality that, oh shit, Namor exists and so does Atlantis. But by the end of it, he lies to his scientific council, tells them that, hey, we didn't find anything. It doesn't exist. He throws his notebook into the ocean at the end of it. And that's kind of like that. How did you guys interpret that ending?
Well, I mean, that was the whole point. Like, that was the only reason why he lived. I took that as like, that was the only reason that Namor saved him, was so that he could go up there and be like, yeah, stop looking for it. It's not there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess if it's coming from this guy, right, who they established in the beginning as like the world's most famous, like, he's a famous scientist. He's like famous for debunking myths. If it's coming out of his mouth, it don't exist, and it probably don't exist.
And it's even like one of the crew, I forgot which one said, is like, do you really want the truth, or do you want what your version of the truth? Yeah, I agree with Ashley. I think that's the reason, because he basically sabotaged the ship and then took the pod and pieced out.
That dude was a giant asshole. I mean, like the more I think about it, that dude was just a fucking giant asshole.
He would have gotten killed halfway through the comic.
Yeah, at some point I was kind of rooting for the sailors to like throw him overboard.
There's that one scene where the guy's like, hey, did he tell you about the bonus? When they're about to beat the shit out of him, he's like, everyone here gets a $200 extra.
As long as I,
and it's like,
make it out alive.
You didn't tell the guys? It's like, oh yeah, $200 extra. That's right.
So last question about the comic book, and I want to hear your thoughts about what we've seen in the trailers and whatnot. Ashley, are you recommending this to any comic curious friends of yours or any newbies?
So I would not recommend this to somebody that wanted to read a Namor comic, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend this to somebody that was kind of more into like kind of horror comics, because I think that it kind of falls more under that. Like, it's more of like a psychological thriller kind of read. I wouldn't even call this a Namor comic.
Yeah, it definitely, I think Ed brought up a good point. It feels like John Carpenter's The Thing meets like Moby Dick meets like a pulp comic
The
book.
Abyss, whatever, sea water based Titanic.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, as long as you kind of I think if you cover your expectations and realize that what you are probably going to see in the big screen, that version of Namor, who is probably going to be more related to the traditional Namor that we were introduced to in the comic books and that a lot of us are familiar with, you probably won't get that here, but I do applaud that an imprint like Marvel Knights existed. I don't think they're around anymore, to offer like these different retellings in these stories, right? Like, because after a certain point, you're kind of like, all right, I know what to expect from Namor. I get it. You know, loudmouth, hothead, king of Atlantis, super strong, takes no shit, right? Like, and that's interesting in its own way. But for them to kind of do a 180 and make the focus on, you know, characters that aren't Namor, and to, you know, give us like a horror kind of tale to it, I do applaud that there is, you know, that you can take a character like that and approach him from a different angle and a different perspective. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's like if you're a fan of, like I said, I'd recommend it to someone who is a comics fan, but kind of likes the multiverse, Elseworlds, what ifs.
Heavy on the Elseworlds part.
Yeah, like they kind of want a new twist on an established character. And, you know, fans of, you know, Isad Ribic, you know, like fans of him, this is definitely a must
for sure
for his collection, you know. But like I said, it's a beautiful comic, but it's pretty much like what I like in a horror movie. But like I said, there's still, it doesn't quite have that really satisfying ending. But I think leading up all the way to the ending, I loved it, and then the ending kind of falls a little flat for me. But I think it's a great, the idea, I think is the concept is greater than the ending for sure.
Yeah, I would recommend this to friends of classic literature and friends that like to go to museums. Right, those are the type of friends I'm recommending this to. All right, one quick question about the movie that's coming up, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. First of all, has anyone, have either of you gotten your tickets? Are you guys catching it opening weekend at all? I've got tickets for Thursday. I'm catching it opening night.
I don't know if I'll see it opening weekend, but I'm very interested in seeing it for sure.
Actually, have you watched any of the trailers at all for this?
No, but I've seen still images from them.
All right. Well, then I'll adjust my question accordingly. Based on, and Ed, feel free to chime in, based on the trailers and or still images that we've seen, what are your thoughts and expectations going into this movie?
I mean, I've literally just seen like the back of Namor's head coming out of the water. It's a Black Panther movie. Like, why wouldn't I be excited? I'm excited to see Namor.
Are you familiar with the fact that the movie's approach to Atlantis and Namor, and this is more based on like a Mayan and Mesoamerican culture than like, say, like Atlantis culture, whatever that may be?
Yeah, I was reading that because, of course, the internet has, you know, all kinds of opinions. But I don't know. And I read Ironheart for a little while, so I'm excited to see Riri Williams, and, you know, I'm excited to see M'Baku again.
Oh, hell yeah.
M'Baku.
Same. I hope we get him just, you know, barking one more time.
I'm interested because I'm curious to see, even just from a story point, what they do with, you know, the passing of Chadwick Boseman. Like, what do you do? How do you course correct? What do you do with, how do you progress the story while honoring him but being tasteful? You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is a real, you know, person who's deceased now. It's like, I'm kind of just curious how they play those cards. And the Namor, I'm just excited to see Namor in the MCU. And I do like the Aztec Mayan thing, because you have to distance yourself from Aquaman, you know, because even as kind of cornball as he can be at times, he's had more exposure just being in cartoons, and, you know, since the 70s, you know, he's been in cartoons and people know who this character is. And I think you have to kind of differentiate the two. And I think if, like I said, even if Namor, there was a live action Namor before Aquaman, I think they would have went in this direction. Yeah. But I think it's cool. It leads to some cool, I think that's a cool design element they can put on the Atlantean, or whatever they're called, to lack of a better word, the Atlanteans, and just from a design standpoint, and just his costuming is interesting.
Yeah. And I think aside from just like differentiating from the distinguished competition, I think it's also a cool juxtaposition and also similarity, right? That you're spotlighting and you're going to be portraying two, you know, brown people cultures, right? Like they've already done a great job establishing Wakanda, right? Like Afro-futuristic,
Latin,
you know,
cultures,
vibes and settings. Now you're kind of going towards like, you know, this Mesoamerican culture, and it kind of, and from my understanding is like, I think it's Mayan. Like, it was essentially like this group of Atlanteans. And there's a phrase for it, I just don't got it pulled up, but it's like they decided to split from the Mayans and just basically like went underwater. And I think whether they built like devices or got mutations.
And that kind of plays off that mythology where the Mayans, why they just basically seem like they just disappeared.
Yeah,
it's kind of like people have theories that they were so advanced they either went to another dimension, so it could be like even a play on like what we consider like mythology.
So far, it looks like a fresh coat of paint on Namor in that. Like, they're bringing something unique. And I think, like I said, it'll just fit in with what Ryan Coogler and his team have done so far with Black Panther. I think they did such a great job of establishing the world of Wakanda, but also the look and feel. Like, it stands out from anything they've done.
It looks cool.
Anything that's been done in the MCU, I think, in my opinion, so far.
Even in cinema, because it's like African Blade Runner,
African,
it's like this is like I've never seen anything look like this ever. It's wild.
I've got full faith that whatever they decide to do with Namor and his people and his kingdom are gonna fit in really well and make sense. All right. With that being said, let's leave this underwater abyss and go back to the surface. All right, let's go up for a little bit and get some air and move on to our next segment and talk about the best new and upcoming comic books hitting a shop near you. Let's grab a fistful of comics.
You can either have a mouthful of teeth or a fistful of comics.
Fistful of Comics is the part of the show dedicated to all you comic curious newbies and loyal Wednesday warriors who are looking for good starting points and new stories to explore in the wide and expensive world of comic books. And who better to help us point you in the right direction than the man who runs Jacksonville's premier comic shop, Ben Kingsbury, the owner of Gotham City Limit. Ben has called in this week to give us his top 3 picks hitting comic shops and shelves next month. Let's get some cool music going. I want a nice little sound bed, and let's see what's on the agenda this week. All right, first up, his first pick is a new series from DC Comics, and it features a cast of characters that you don't see together too often. All right, I'll toss it to Ben to share the details.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, I go by the name Benjamin Dylan Kingsbury, and this is my FOC Picks of the Week. Shout out to Gotham City Limit. First up, DC Comics Danger Street, a maxi series, multi-character, multi-layered crime drama brought to you by, pun intended, crime drama king Tom King. Listen to this motley cast of characters sure to be involved. Starman, Metamorpho, Warlord, Manhunter, Lady Copy, the Green Team, Darkseid, and more. I'm sure they'll find out calling on a new god never ends well. No one will see it coming, but everyone will want to see where it goes.
All right, so that was Danger Street #1. That'll be available in shops on December 13th. Now, if superheroes aren't your thing and you're looking for something a little more out there, like way out there, we're talking like in the stratosphere and in space out there, I think the second pick might be what you're looking for. Take it away, Ben.
Next up, All Against All, a new miniseries brought to you by Image Comics. I'm a sucker for just about any story that has to do with alien civilizations ever since I first laid eyes on the TV show X-Files back in the 90s. And All Against All is right up this alley. Check out this miniseries: distant future, alien conquerors, apex predators, and conveniently the last human alive is named Helpless. Remember, the truth is out there.
When I was in boot camp, I was with this guy. His last name was Loveless, and I thought that was the most badass name ever.
So it's a porn star name. Heidi Loveless.
Thank you, Ed, for that fact. That was good. All right, listeners, if that last pick was like way too out there for you and you want something a little more familiar, you want something a little more classic, well, listen to Ben's last recommendation.
And last but not least, Blade Runner 2039. Have you seen any of the Blade Runner movies? If you've enjoyed them, you'll love the comics. Blade Runner 2039 is the final chapter in the battle-weary Blade Runner saga, and I must know how Ash's story ends. Another maxi series brought to you by Titan Comics. Well, that's it. I'm Ben K on behalf of Gotham City Limit. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility, and always take it to the limit.
Leave it to Ben to merge Batman, Spider-Man, and every other comic book slogan into one. I should have said All Against All and then this Blade Runner 2039. Both those are issue 1s, and they both come out the same day on December 7th. Ashley and Ed, of the 3 recommendations shared today, which one are you guys most interested in? Which one piqued your interest? Ashley, go.
All Against All, for sure. Image comic, Aliens, X-Files, like, you got me.
Yeah, he could have just stopped at X-Files and would have got you. Ed, what about you?
I'm going to go with the Blade Runner 2039.
Okay.
I'm interested in seeing what is going on and who the hell Ash is. It's not the Pokemon, right? So that would be awesome, actually.
So you're interested to see what 17 years from now will look like.
Yeah. I'll be dead
soon.
by then, so I'm going to look at it now.
I got to say, this Danger Street #1 from DC Comics and Tom King sounds really good. I think the artist is Jorge Fornes. I believe that's who's doing the art, and he's a fantastic artist. But this year has been this year has been me kind of like walking back all my Tom King takes and appreciating his writing a lot. So for him to be doing another DC series and with a bunch of kind of like, a cast of characters you don't really see together a lot has piqued my interest. But that's the list, listeners. If any of those pique your interest, make sure you hit up your local comic shops. Make sure that you get your pre-orders in. You don't want to miss out. Like I said, a lot of these come out first week in December, so you got to get your pre-orders in now if any of those speak to you. Big shout out to Ben for always providing some top-notch reading recommendations. And remember, even if you don't live in Jax, you can still take it to the limit by shopping the Gotham City Limit online store for comics and exclusive shop variants. He's got a whole bunch of those. There's a link in the show notes if you're interested in checking those out. We're going to keep our next segment short and sweet. But first, I want to take a quick music break to either be really depressed or really happy about how the Jags are doing against the Raiders. A part of me tells me they are not doing so well. So let's play some music from the new guy on the Short Box music team. He goes by the name of Lerm, and he's bringing us new music all the way from Brazil. Enjoy the special delivery, and we'll be right back. All right, once again, the music you just heard was by our newest Short Box music signee, Lerm. If you like what you heard, go listen to more of his music on YouTube and SoundCloud. I got links in the show notes to do just that, so check that out there. We don't got emails to read today, all right? No emails. Our normal emailers, like T-Mix, fell asleep today, I guess, this week. They didn't have no words to share today. So I'll encourage everyone that made it this far in the show to send an email for us to read next episode. I've got 2 prompts for you if you need any like motivation or you need to write against something. Here's your first one. Tell us your favorite underwater character of all time. It could be Namor. It could be the Little Mermaid for all I care. Right? It can even be SpongeBob, which would be a very respectable pick. Or someone else in pop culture. All you got to do is write in and tell us why they're your favorite. All right? That's prompt number 1. Prompt number 2. If you go see Black Panther this opening week, write in and tell us what you thought about the movie. Tell us what you thought about the portrayal of Namor and the movie in general. Did you like it? Keep it short and sweet and try to avoid any spoilers where you can. And those are your 2 prompts, right? If you have the winning email, aka the one that we like the most, we'll let you pick between 2 different comics as a prize. Either you're going to get one of these, this Green Lantern, Dark Crisis World Without a Justice League Green Lantern #1 variant cover, or you're going to get this Vanish #1 variant cover, which looks pretty rad. It's art by Alan Kuo. It is a Gotham City Limit exclusive variant. It looks like some Mortal Kombat shit, doesn't it? Like some Tekken fighting game stuff. So anyways, I'll give a comic book to the best email that we receive. I'll let you make your pick there. So you got your marching orders. Write us an email. And while you do that, I think it's a perfect time to get to the last topic for today. I told you we're going to keep the second part of the show short and sweet. We're going to tell you all about the best entertainment options personally selected by us and guaranteed to be worthy of your time and attention. It's time for Champion Season.
It's time for
Champion Season is the part of the show where we highlight worthwhile entertainment options like movies, TV series, books, video games, and anything else we personally recommend to our friends looking for something new to dive into. Ed, how about you go ahead and kick us off today, man? What do you got to champion?
Like I said, I'm going to champion a couple things. First, I will champion Black Adam because I did enjoy it. It is not the best, but it's a fun movie. It's a fun popcorn movie.
It's got a good personality.
It's got good personality. No, it's a fun movie. It was, like I said, it was better than I thought it would be, and I do like, The Rock, even though he has like maybe 8 lines in the movie. It's it's a little Mortal Kombat, God of War-ish, 300-ish.
Yeah, heavy. It feels like watching a video game where all the cutscenes were spliced together.
Yeah, it's like, but I do like I thought the guy who plays, basically, Rock is awesome, but Dr. Fate, I think, was a standout character in that.
Give that man his own movie. That was my biggest takeaway, was like, I need a JSA movie.
Yeah, he's awesome. And then I even like Hawkman. He's got probably the sweetest mansion I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Batman looks broke compared to, I don't know where Hawkman got all this money. And then I did like Atom Smasher. I thought he was a fun character.
The JSA to me were the best part of that movie.
Yeah.
I think the movie could have benefited from being just a Black Adam movie and then introduce the JSA like in the next movie or something. I think trying to have so many characters on screen at once kind of stole the thunder a little bit.
It was wild to see like a crazy demon guy with a pentagram on his chest.
What the fuck?
It turned into a metal video, a heavy metal video. It was like, it's like, this is a Mortal Kombat game.
Yeah. That's a sneak peek. That was the sneak peek to the latest villain for the newest Mortal Kombat movie.
It was like, wow, they really went with this guy. Okay. But it was a fun, entertaining movie. And I did like the Superman tease at the end.
Yeah, it was
pretty cool.
It was much better than I granted, the internet completely ruined that. I felt like no one respected spoiler rules and was just like, yo, Henry Cavill's back. But it was, I won't lie. I got a little prideful, seeing him back in the suit.
Yeah, it was some heavy-handed in some parts, but it's a fun movie. It's a fun movie. I like the fact that Amanda Waller is in this, and like I said, it was, I did like how they changed the origin of Black Adam, where it was his son, and he didn't kill him and steal his powers like in the comic.
Yeah, his son just made a poor decision on the timing to revert back to regular human. Yeah.
It's like, here you go, Dad. Oh, arrow in the face. Oh, God. But the second thing, I have a big stack of comics, which I'm slowly going through, but Kaya from Wes Craig of Deadly Class fame. It's his new book. It is a fantasy book with Jason Wordle or Wordy. Jason Wordy doing the colors. It's a nice to see like a kind of a different style for him after seeing all the Deadly Class stuff. So it's I think it's an all ages book, like a high fantasy hero's journey type of book. Only the first issue, I think maybe 2 issues are out now, 2 or 3 issues are out, but I'm just now getting around to it. And it is worth, if you like his art, if you like Wes Craig, if you like kind of Bone, that type of fantasy type of stuff, definitely check it out.
What about you, Ashley? What do you got for Champion Season?
So first I have a movie, Weird, the Al Yankovic story.
Oh, that's out. Okay.
Dude, that movie came out in September, and I was in the same boat as you. I was surprised that it had already
been out since September.
So long. Yeah.
Oh.
Has it really? I I turned on the TV and it was like, hey, watch this now free. And I was like, all right.
Did it get in theaters?
Thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know.
Who was it?
I don't know if it was in theaters. It's free on Roku right now.
Yeah, Daniel Radcliffe.
It was hilarious. I laughed like literally through the whole thing. I thought it was going to be like kind of an exaggeration on his life, but it's just completely like made up. Like there's like nothing. Absolutely not. You learn nothing about him in this movie.
Did they do they talk about when he was on Wheel of Fortune with James Brown and Little Richard? Because that really happened.
No, because that wasn't even interesting enough to make it into this movie.
Oh,
Like, it was
wow,
so
okay.
ridiculous. Like, Madonna shows up at his door and she's like, "Hey, Weird Al." Like, it was just the dumbest thing, but it was so funny.
That's awesome.
So that made my day. It was so much funnier than I thought it was going to be. And then I don't know if we have had the podcast since House of the Dragon ended.
Ashley,
But,
come on. You know, I'm right there with you. What do you want to talk about, Ashley? I'm here for you.
I just feel like they did stick the landing on this. Like, when that last scene ended, I literally jumped up off my couch and I was like, "No, you didn't. You're so dumb." Like, I was so
You're with
excited.
child.
Yeah, yeah, I almost went into
Jumping
early
around.
labor. I was just like so pumped. I was like, "Oh my God." It was like the ending was so, and then I found out there's 2 more years until the next
know.
one. So
2
that was like
years.
super bummer. 2 years.
That's the only reason I'd say they didn't stick the landing, because now I've got to wait 2 years for shit to like pop off.
Are these based on books or are these something
No,
separate?
this one's based on a book.
This is a book?
It's based on a book. Yeah. I don't think he's going to finish Game of Thrones.
No.
I think it's done. He's made so much content with Game of Thrones not being finished. I don't think he's going to finish it. I think he's like, why do I need to? They already made the show. I already got my money.
Well, I think he said he's like 60% done, or like 2/3 of the way done with the last book or something like that. But I think House of Dragons is based on a book that's a complete book. It was more like like a history kind of book on the Targaryens and
it's
whatnot.
a separate.
It's like a 300
addendum?
year old history.
Yeah. That's how expensive this fucking world is. There's
my
fucking
God.
history books, glossaries and all that. This has completely washed that terrible taste of season 8 Game of Thrones out my mouth. I'm back on the every Sunday don't bother me come 9 o'clock.
Wow.
And you better have watched the show on Monday because I'm talking about it train.
That good, huh? Oh,
Actually,
man.
I want to know who was your favorite character and what was your favorite moment in the first season?
Oh God. I really took a liking to Aemon Targaryen. He just kind of, had like a rough childhood, like lost an eye and everything. So there was a lot of stuff in that season that I did not like, where they kind of really pushed it, and I was like, "Gosh, really?"
So this timeline's how long before Eris?
Like 600?
300 years, I think.
Oh, yeah. 200
Or is it
years.
longer?
Before the Mad King, or is this?
No, yeah, well before, man.
Oh wow, okay.
Because you'll be watching, at least for me, I was watching it like, oh, I recognize that name. And it's like, well, that's not the name you think it is. That is like their great-great-grandfather, because it's so far
Same
behind.
names stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like you could just jump in. If you watched Game of Thrones, the Game of Thrones, then this is a good jumping on point. And even if you didn't, I think it's, actually, would you agree, like, you can kind of just follow along because they do a good job of re-establishing these characters. And because it's so, like, it's such a prequel, it's like you're kind of watching the beginnings.
Is there a blonde Peter Dinklage as a Targaryen?
No, that'd be rad.
That would be awesome.
That's the only thing I was missing.
All right. Maybe season 2.
Everybody's blonde though. Like 80% of the cast is blonde, and they're all related.
Because
They're all making
sisters and
kids.
cousins.
They're all making kids together.
The only ones that aren't blonde are those bastards. I love that line.
It's all
They
cousins and
are
sisters and brothers, right?
Bastards.
Or is that
Yeah,
started yet?
Yeah.
Or does that start later?
No, that starts now.
Oh
It's all
no, we're
ins-
full
oh,
in
the-
it. We're
Oh my
full.
God.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say, Ashley, about Aemon is he has one of the slickest lines in the whole series when he's when they do the time jump and he's they showed like he's older, he's missing the eye. I feel like the actor they hired for him, they were like, let's give him a 20-year time jump and everyone else just do a 5-year time jump because he's a fucking grown man and everyone's like a teenager. But when he's training with Sir Cole and Sir Cole's like, you'll be winning 20s in no time, my prince. And he was like, I don't give a shit about 20s. And he sees his cousins and he's like, cousins, have you come here to train? He's slimy looking, but not slimy in the sense of like, I don't trust him. It's more like, I would not fuck with that guy.
Yeah, man, and his dragon is like so freaking cool.
Retire
like
that
Jurassic
old-ass
Park,
dragon.
like chills you, dragon.
Good stuff. Ashley, you got anything else to champion?
That's it.
All right. Thank you. Ashley, your champion made me realize I'm having existential dread because I don't know what to do with my Sundays now, other than, I guess, like, just stay mad at the Jaguars all day.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. I got 3 quick champions. The first one, kind of going back to my comments about Tom King. My first champion is Batman One Bad Day Riddler. It's written by Tom King, art by Mitch Gerads, which is, great because they've worked together plenty of times. Mitch Gerads is a fantastic artist. It's part of this ongoing series of one-shots that DC is doing where they're spotlighting, some of Batman's best rogues. So there was immediately after this Riddler story, there was a one-shot about Two-Face. The next one is going to be about Mr. Freeze, and that's due. Actually, it'll be out like today when this episode drops, and it's written by Gary Duggan, art by Matteo Scalera. But this Riddler one was the one that kicked things off, and every single premise is basically like, hey, let's take like a deep dive into this character and see what makes them like really tick, or around the premise of like them having one bad day to like really push them over the edge. So the overall premise is like, we all know Riddler is one of Batman's like smartest villains. He's his one downfall is that, he's got this knack of having to basically like tattle on himself, right? He's always like laying out clues deliberately. Well, in this story, it's like Riddler completely unhinged. You kind of see like the full scope of his quote unquote powers and genius and like what he's capable of. He kills like someone in broad daylight, and it seems like there's no reason behind it. And, and Batman's kind of like not wanting to take the case because he feels like it's just going to bring more attention to Riddler that he doesn't want to give. But the way Riddler reacts and basically draws Batman out, like, look, you're going to fucking come talk to me about why I did this. And the shit he does is insane. If you're not someone that's kind of like, if you're someone that's kind of squeamish, has a light stomach, can't really stand a lot of blood, then you might want to avoid this. But if you want to see like, the black, this book live up to the Black Label imprint, it definitely does that. So it's Tom King being very psychological, very character driven, and it's with a character that you're like, I normally could give a shit less about Riddler because I hate riddles, but after this, you kind of put you put some respect on his name. All right, my second champion is Andor. I feel like I've already championed this, so I'll probably just keep it short. But these last few episodes have been really good. It feels like a whole new season. It feels like a whole new show. I think this show is 12 episodes, this first season. And I believe every 3 episodes is supposed to be like kind of like a mini arc. So we're in this new kind of quote, like mini arc and whatnot. Spoiler warning, Andy Serkis is in it. And that should honestly be reason enough to be watching this show. But everything that they were slowly building up on in the first few episodes, I feel have gotten like stronger. There's actually like legs beneath some of the concepts and characters. And it's just like way more interesting. To me, it was a very slow burn in the beginning. It's very like bureaucratic, very like political kind of Star Wars storytelling. There's not there's no Jedis in this as far as I can tell. There's not a bunch of blasters, plenty of droids and troopers and stuff, but it's just a slow burn. But these latest episodes, I feel like a moth attracted to a flame. Like it is. It's been very interesting. So if you've been kind of like iffy on Andor in the first few, maybe you fell out in the first 2 episodes because I was close to doing so. These last few episodes have been fucking super dope. So check that out. And last but not least, the last thing I'll champion on the topic of Black Panther, ABC did a 2020 little TV special. I watched it on Hulu, so you can watch it on Hulu. They probably have it on the ABC website, but it's called Black Panther in Search of Wakanda. And it was basically just like a big spotlight on the upcoming movie. So they interviewed like the whole cast. They interviewed Ryan Coogler. They talked about Namor being in the movie. They talked a lot about what this movie meant to the cast after losing Chadwick Boseman, his legacy and things like that. Well worth the watch. It's only like 40 minutes, but it's got me so hyped for the movie and made me really it gave me like a new, fresh perspective and respect for the first movie and how much thought went into it. I mean, they interviewed the costume designer, they interviewed the set designer, and like the amount of thought that you get to hear from them and like how much thought they put into the first one and wanting to elevate it for the second one. It's got me feeling good about the movie. So if you're someone that's like looking to get hype on before Wakanda Forever drops, check out this ABC special on Hulu. It's and prepare for the waterworks too. I mean, you're gonna be like, God damn, why did they take my boy Chadwick from me? It's definitely it's tough to watch a little bit, but it's a lot of fun. And for the record, I just realized I made a note that Atlantis in this movie is called Talokan. That's what the name of the city is. They're all Talokan. So those are my champions. All right, you got Batman One Bad Day, Riddler #1, the Andor Disney Plus TV series, and this ABC Black Panther in Search of Wakanda special. Shortbox Nation, it's your turn to chime in now, right? If you got a worthwhile champion pick that you feel that we and the rest of the Shortbox Nation might enjoy, go ahead and share it with us, all right? We want to hear from you. Tell us if you try out any of the recommendations we shared today, or if you got one that can match those. We'd love to get some feedback. Hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, or write us a short email at theshortboxjacks@gmail.com. There's links to all of that in the show notes. Ashley, I think we can consider this a wrap, but before I do what I do and I, officially lock up shop, do you mind doing the honors and providing some parting words for the listeners? What was the main takeaway? What do you got for us?
So I think that we really did a lot of listeners a favor today. We took a comic that they would have canceled off their poll after 2 issues, and we read the whole thing, and we laid it out for them and let them decide if it's worth reading it or not. So I think at the end of the day, everyone's time is very valuable. So that's what we've given them. We've given them the gift of time.
This is a service we provide at the Short Box.
The service, yes, yes.
All in a day's work. Look, like I normally like to say, we do the homework for you. All right, we encourage you to do the homework, but just cheat off our paper. Right, just look over our shoulder. We're gonna have it right there, all the answers. Ashley, that was well said. I thought maybe the big takeaway was going to be that you learned, a new race of people, being the Homo Romanus.
Romanus.
Good stuff. Thank you, Ashley. All right, well, there you have it, Shortbox Nation. Thank you for hanging out with us this week. If you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor and help spread the word to a friend, or recommend us to someone you know that loves comics as much as we do. If you're feeling extra generous, consider leaving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It costs you nothing except 10 seconds and a couple of nice words, all right? And it would mean a lot to us. Next week, we'll be taking a look at the latest comic news and pop culture headlines to see what's been going on in the industry, all right? And just maybe, if we got time, we'll have a dedicated Black Panther movie review bonus episode. I'll probably try to do that with Drew. So stay tuned to that, but we'll definitely have another Short Box News episode dropping on Wednesday. Now, if waiting a week for a new episode feels like an eternity, if you're impatient like I am, I recommend you join our Patreon community to get access to bonus shows, episode voting privileges, video podcasts, and more. I just dropped an episode with Drew. We looked at this month's Previews magazine. That one's more on the R-rated side, and you got to listen to find out why that one's staying behind the paywall.
You got those adult previews?
It's a little raunchier than normal. So that one's staying behind the paywall, and I think that'll be an ongoing kind of Patreon bonus episode, or those previews episodes. So I promise you, it's well worth the very, very small fee of admission. Just go to patreon.com/theshortbox to sign up, or smash one of those helpful links in the show notes. And while you're at it, buy some merch from us, right? Buy some merch from our store. We got a few things on sale, like Shortbox shirts. We got hats, we got pins, and pretty soon we'll have some patches with our signature gauntlet logo available for purchase. There's not only a link in the show notes, but there's also a discount code for 10%. Save yourself a few bucks and represent for the Shortbox Nation proudly. Until we meet again, Shortbox Nation, take care of yourselves. Have a great day. And please continue to make mine and yours Shortbox. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.